the Overman Warrior Podcast.
It's a big chain.
That's huge. I bet I even can't even. Yeah, I bet I can't even move that. Wow. Okay, you can't even move the chain. It would have been amazing.
That's a big chain.
Apparently, a lot of people travel just to come see it in operation. No, it's locked.
I think it's super cool.
They welded the actual hinges.
Hi, it's Rich Hoffman here. Often when you take trips, and I'm talking about a family trip we took to the wilds in Ohio, you get out of those things different things than you thought you were going to get going into it. And I just wanted to take my family to like a zoo. I love zoos. I love conservation efforts because, within conservation efforts is the attempt to preserve the creation of something good and something that you value, whether it's a species of animal or a building or a movement. The conservation is a good thing. And I knew the area, the wilds. I would say the wilds would not have been possible without strip mining. When I grew up in the 80s, 70s and 80s, strip mining was a lot of the talk in the news. And, Ohio was a kind of a centerpiece of that talk. And near the wilds is what is left of the big Muskie bucket, the gigantic strip mining dragline machine, largest in the world, that stripped away so much surface land to extract coal during the coal mining period. And it came to my mind while we were there, and we went to go over and see the big bucket as it exists to the south of the Wilds Park. The Wilds was pretty much a strip mining exercise where the surface of the earth had been strip mined away to get to the coal, and they used this big Muskie bucket to do it. And it was a tremendous feat of engineering to see. And when you hear environmentalists talk about it, they're actually building, as I went to visit it, they're building a large museum to it. It has an outside display. You can drive right up to it and see the big bucket. And you always heard about this strip mining bucket. There was a few of them that were big out there. This was the biggest in the world in Ohio, central Ohio, near Zanesville. And people would come from all over to come see the big Muskie bucket at work, strip mining land. But when you go to the wilds and you see what they've done as a conservation effort. Now, the Central Ohio Coal Company ran the big Muskie bucket. And when you go and you see the exhibit, there was a lot of environmental laws that came into effect in the late 70s. I'm not against environmental preservation, but not at the expense of capitalism. And I often think you get the best results of conservation in science and fulfillment towards innovation from companies that are out there, like this in this case of the strip mining. They make the claim, the Central Ohio Coal Company will say that they were enacting preservation methods before politicians got involved in environmental methods in the late 70s. And if you remember, it's always attached to these movements. And this is where I'm kind of torn on the issue. Always because I like conservation and preservation. But I think in the case of like the Central Ohio Coal Company, they had owned and they still own a large part of the wilds, apparently. They were a subsidiary of American Electric Power, AEP, and that they owned vast spans of land, much of which is why the wilds exist. And without them, the wilds probably would have never been a thing. But the effort to turn something that had been strip mined into something useful and to leave it better than it was when they found it, which is certainly the case here, to pull out of the earth huge amounts of coal, which took 300 some million years to turn into something of usable energy. I couldn't help but go around this site and think of the first energy deal and think of the way that the political left attacks power companies, and they just don't realize that every time they go get a coffee at Starbucks or use an ATM machine or turn on their PlayStations, they're consuming power, and something has to go out there and generate that power. Now, I think nuclear power is the way to go in most cases, but here in Ohio, the First Energy, there are 2 power plants, nuclear power plants. If I'm just rattling numbers off the top of my head, I think they supply 30% of the power needs of Ohio's energy grid, the two nuclear power plants. And you had members of the Obama administration and Biden attacking outright their right to exist. And the same thing was going on back in the big Muskie days, where strip mining was identified as being, look, you're raping the land. You're stripping away all this precious topsoil with this big giant Muskie bucket. The bucket, and I showed clips in this video of us being there. You could fit 2 buses inside it easily. What would be is a giant crane that was much taller, 400 some, almost 500 feet tall, dragging this gigantic bucket across the surface of the land and scooping up huge amounts of land, and it would pull up soil, and it would pull up a lot of surface coal that had, it was a good way to get to coal. It was a lot safer than coal mining down inside the ground. You just rip away the surface of the earth, and there's the coal. And of course, the people who think of the earth as a living entity to worship, as a god, in a celestial body, a celestial family of planets that have their own life forms, and we're just parasites on it, is the way the left looks at it. This attempt to use conservation as an excuse to enforce Marxist policies and destroy access to power, energy, has been detrimental. And as I've said, energy policy, what makes energy good, is the same debate we have about AI right now. Should it be human labor, a person picking up something to move into another place, that constitutes work and productivity? Or should we utilize power, AI power, data centers, electricity? This all falls under the same umbrella of using resources to maximize productive output. So Marxists trying to get a capitalist monopoly, or trying to get a monopoly on capitalist endeavors, uses energy restriction as a way to dominate market forces. And it's always what's been behind the environmental movement. Look how terrible it is. The big musky bucket is ripping away huge amounts of the earth, raping and pillaging it, ripping away its skin, the precious topsoil. And then what's underneath that is the oil, is the coal that you burn to pollute that poor atmosphere. Strip mining was horrible. And then when you go and you see the big, you look what humans did to get access to that coal, so they could turn coal into energy that could then be turned into productive enterprise. And then you see the efforts they took to preserve what they did, the work they left behind, and it ends up as something like the Wilds, the Wilds Park, an attempt to restore a strip mine area that had been really had a lot of human impact enacted upon it. And through the creation of a conservation effort, they turned it into the wonderful Wilds. And we stayed at the campground by the Wilds, the Hellbender, all of its strip mine land, the whole area. And it was remarkable. I think what was left behind turned out to be a remarkable section of land that did what it needed to do to get to coal. And in the process, they flattened a huge amount of the Allegheny foothills and turned it into something that looks like and it behaves like the African Serengeti. And I thought it was a very impressive historical perspective. And I could not help but think of First Energy and how unfair it was of these environmental lunatics that are trying to shut down Ohio's power grid and then blame it on Republicans because Republicans tried to preserve it. Much the way Republicans tried to eliminate slavery and they were demonized. The same kind of evil Democrat efforts to turn environmentalism into anti-capitalist propaganda. When you go and you see the big Muskie bucket in person and stand in it and within it, around it, touch it, and see all the hoopla was always about. And again, with me, I grew up with strip mining. I grew up hearing stories about strip mining, how evil it was from all the radical leftists. And then seeing it in person, you can't help but see what this great innovation it was and what a wonderful thing it was at a time when energy was defining itself. And they had to do a lot of work to get to a little bit of coal. And that little bit of coal transferred into usable tons of energy per day was not as efficient as what we have today. Today, in Ohio, natural gas is the primary fuel, like 50% of our energy consumption. And really, nuclear should be the primary. Nuclear energy is good energy, and we should have a lot more nuclear energy plants. But until you have better energy policy, what's the answer the left has for powering all the energy needs we have? Not to have energy, to retreat back to like a campfire where we all sit around like a bunch of hippies and smoke dope and tell stories about pagan gods to each other and act and live like animals, or to turn productive output into usable energy that can propel society forward in healthy ways. And you can't help but go to that region of the world, the Wilds. Go south of the Wilds and see the big Muskie bucket on the side of the road with they're building a nice museum to it right there, and there's a great exhibit. Puts it in perspective. And then when you drive across that vast span of land and you see how much land had been strip mined all the way up to where the campground is, and stay there for several days and kind of look around and get to know the area pretty well, you see really the heart of Amish country, coal mine territory that you see is so important to the economies of Pennsylvania and Ohio. When you're campaigning for Republican events, and we talked about drill baby drill, the Trump mantra for energy policy, and really helped him win the state, the swing states, you really have to go to that region to kind of get a good taste of what energy policy has been in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and places like that. And then to see the history of it with the big Muskie bucket and the American Electric Power Company as the Central Ohio Coal Company operated the big Muskie bucket and extracted a lot of coal for the early days of power consumption in the power grid in Ohio. And Democrats, environmentalists never had a replacement strategy for those things. They've poo-pooed everything that was presented because they essentially want a primitive human existence and really a depopulation. They don't want humans to have less burden of labor. They want more burden, and they want less labor, and they want less productive output as a human race, and they really want to eliminate the human race through abortion policies and a lot of detrimental behavioral characteristics that are meant to reduce human ingenuity. And when you go to the big Muskie bucket, I think in the same day for us, we went to the wilds, enjoyed the conservation efforts of preserving the animals and the land that had been strip mined. And they turned this giant strip mine into this beautiful oasis of a Jurassic Park-like Serengeti experience. It's wonderfully done. Beautiful use of the land. And then when you see the benefits of that conservation effort, in the same day, we went on down to see the big Muskie bucket that caused all the strip mining, and to see it kind of sitting on the side of the road, left in a depleted condition, and have a little memorial to it for early days of coal extraction, for which it was very efficient. When you get past all that and you go to see it in the same day, I think it puts it in perspective, and even more so, my convictions about First Energy getting a raw deal from Obama-era politicians. This isn't about corruption of Republicans trying to preserve those two nuclear power companies that are providing 30% of the energy grid of Ohio, especially in Upper Ohio. They're not evil by any stretch of the imagination. Just like that big Muskie bucket was a invention of excessive human innovation to give the human race an advancement of productive output that brought us into a civilized society. And what was left behind from all that effort was this wonderful Wilds Park that the power company still owns the land. And before the politicians started chewing into them, they were already out there trying to have conservation and preservation methods to restore the land better than what they found it. And by any means, these big power companies do great things in the world, not harmful things. Innovation and technology are great benefactors of conservation efforts everywhere they're employed. And always not far behind the productive output of those kinds of efforts. It's not the stringy-haired, pot-smoking hippies protesting energy extraction or energy generation. It's the capitalist efforts that often drive the best of what we have on planet Earth, and the wilds being a capitalist enterprise, an amusement park, with a safari effort behind it. It's ultimately a capitalist endeavor. Nothing there is cheap, including the beautiful restaurant they have up there to overlook the valley. Everything's expensive, and you have to pay money to enjoy it, and it should be that way, because it costs money to maintain these things and to build them and improve upon nature in many ways, which is certainly the case. If you're out in the middle of nowhere, having a picnic, looking out over that same vista at the beautiful giraffes and rhinoceroses that are down the valley, it's a lot less convenient than having a beautiful restaurant with warm food cooked in a great way for you, having running water brought to your convenience so you can sit there on that vista and overlook that beautiful valley. That was carved by the big Muskie bucket. That wouldn't have typically appeared that way in nature, but only because of the strip mining was it made in a way that could be carved into such a wonderful enterprise, the wilds. And the big Muskie buckets roll in it. Great effort, and just a reminder of why these big power companies do a lot of good for the human race, and they aren't detriments that the environmentalists try to make them out to be. And that the EPA rules that come in to cascade and penalize them, they're often doing more work than the politicians tag on to try and bootleg off the efforts later, which was certainly the case with slavery. Republicans were out there to end slavery, and Democrats didn't catch on to it. They were the members of the KKK leading up to the 60s, when they realized that they were losing to Republicans on the issue, and they needed to capture the civil rights effort. So that's why the Democrats got involved, and they try to maintain it to this day. But ending slavery was a Republican thing, and conservation efforts often come from capitalist enterprises. Best, these big energy companies, like the one that operated the big Muskie bucket, the Wilds is born out of their efforts. And they've done a great job over the years of being the leaders of innovation that preserve great things, not destroy them. And that, I think, is the lesson of the big Muskie bucket. And it's something, if you get in that part of the world, you should go see it. And if you go to the Wilds, you definitely need to see it, because the Wilds wouldn't be there if not for strip mining. And I think we'll look back on many things in the future and say, wow, good thing we drilled, good thing we extracted oil, good thing we had gasoline cars for a long time, because it gave the human race a bridge to become a type 1 civilization, type 2, type 3 civilization, which is where you want to be. It's where you want to go. The big Muskie bucket, really a cool exhibition of human innovation. The mass of that bucket and having enough horsepower to drag that thing and actually pull up huge amounts of dirt is an incredible feat of engineering. And to see it on the side of the road like that in central Ohio, just to the south, east of the Wilds Park, I thought was really enlightening, and reminded me of the current battle with First Energy, where environmentalists are trying to put nuclear power companies out of business. And the nuclear power companies are essential to the energy grid of Ohio, and we need a lot more of them, not fewer. Don't listen to the crazy environmentalists and the Obama-era lunatics that have socialism and Marxism behind their efforts to say we should preserve the earth by eliminating humans and eliminating human effort to consume power. They need to play less PlayStation and consume less power so we can preserve the earth and not strip mine it and not have this dangerous nuclear energy that could be harmful, and using the safety tyrants to essentially destroy innovation everywhere where it needs to be. And the best lessons, I think, of conservation, preservation, and innovation can be seen by looking at the big Muskie bucket on the side of the road south of the Wilds Park, and then going to the Wilds and seeing the efforts of strip mining and what they turned that beautiful park from a strip mining exercise into a wonderful nature preserve that is doing great work in the world to this very day. And I am a huge fan of the Wilds. I think it's awesome. Love the Wilds. Anyway, it's Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Gunfighter's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day, and see you later.
In the age of disclosure, you must understand the politics of heaven. Coming soon.
Coming soon, the politics of heaven in 2027. A treasure hunt through heaven and all human history.